Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel Saint Nightingale. In this tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you how to cut and sew this Princess Dart Bustier with ruched sleeves and fringe attached to the dress. Let's go. So what I did was to create my pattern on the gum stay, white gum stay, as you can see. First of all, I placed it on the floor and tried to mark the area that I'll be working with. So I marked 25 inches, as you can see, on the gum stay, and also the length that I'll be working with is 18 inches. So I just marked out 18 inches across the gum stay. This is not the shoulder to waist measurement or the half length measurement. I just made sure that I had excess so that the area that I'll be working with is as wide and as wide as possible. So I went on to divide this into two. Divide 25 inches into two, which will give me 12.5 inches, and that's what you see me doing now. Afterwards, I went on to plot my neck measurements. What you have right now, the first line you have going that way is the starting point or from shoulder measurement, but I went in by 3 inches to mark where that curve that you had seen at the beginning of the video will start from. So that's 3 inches away from the starting point, and I will label it NP, or let me call it neck points. I decided to use the acronym NP to signify the neck points. Then I went further to mark the shoulder measurements. The shoulder measurements I'll be working with is 14 inches divided by 2 will give me 7. I left half an inch sewing allowance on both sides, and that's 7.5 inches. So that's what you can see me doing now. I'll just go further to mark the armhole measurement with this measurement that I've done, as you can see in the video. So because this is not on fold and this is spread out, I would have to be replicating what I do on the left side on the right side. So I am marking the armhole. I'm marking the armhole measurement. I'm using my curve ruler to also secure the armhole curve. Afterwards, I'm going to be marking the shoulder to nipple measurement, the shoulder to underbust measurement, and the shoulder to the waist measurement, or what I would call the half length measurement. The shoulder to nipple measurement is 10.5, shoulder to underbust measurement 12.5, and the half length measurement is 14 inches, but then I made this 14.5. Alright, so I'm going across this so I changed that to neck point so that I won't get confused when you see two different two NPs on that. So I've marked the neck nipple point, underbust point, and the waist length. I went further to mark the nipple to nipple measurement, and that's what you can see me doing now. Afterwards, I went on to take out my bustier darts. I took out, on the right side I took out 1 inches inwards, and on the left side I took out 1.5 inches outwards, and then on the left side, this will be on the flip side, so it will be 1 inch inwards and 1.5 inches outwards. On this but rather in this video, you saw that I made an error, so where I plotted my my bustier was incorrect, so I decided to correct it. So you plot it from the nipple points downwards towards the underbust, and from the underbust connect a straight line to the waistline, and I'm just shading that off so you pretty much can understand better what I've done. So I've done that now. On the left side, plotted the bustier cut on the left side, and I'm going to take in my short ruler to draw a straight line to the waistline, and there you have it. So I'll just shade off that part so you know the part that I won't be needing anymore. Up next, what we're going to be doing right now is to plot the Princess Dart. So I went on that line, I took the midpoint of that line, and I picked half an inch on both sides of the midpoint that I've marked, and then I picked my curve ruler to connect the first line to the midpoint, and picked again to connect it to the half inch measurement that I've done on both sides of the midpoint, and that's what you can see there. I'm just going to replicate the same thing on the left side of this pattern, and there you have it. So we're done with this Princess Dart Bustier pattern, and this is it. But then there's a bit of a shape that I want to create on the center point of this pattern. You can remember that cone-like shape. So I placed my curve ruler now on the armhole measurement. You can see, just follow what I'm doing, and then I went on to draw with the marker that curve, and I'm going to be drawing the same curve the same way I placed the curve ruler. It's the same thing I'm going to be doing on that side of the curve. I'm also ensuring that while drawing the curve, the start point of the curve is equal to the start point of the curve on the right side, so that the curve is as identical as possible, because this is not on fold, so I have to be replicating the same on both sides. Then I went on to mark my bust measurement, adding the allowance that is required. So I added about 4 inches allowance on both sides, so that even when I have excess, it won't make me run out of fabric when joining the bust side and the waist side. And so the same measurements is what I'll be replicating on the left side of the pattern, and to create the bust measurement and the waist measurement. And depending on the bust size and the waist size, you can decide to make your allowance to suit the measurement I'll be working with. But for me, the bust measurement I worked with was 34 inches. The waist measurement I worked with was 25 inches. And bearing in mind that I'd already taken about 2.5 inches on both sides for the bustier cut, so returning my 2.5 inches intact, and then you now have the 2 inches, rather 1.5 inches sewing allowance, which will now make us have what we have right now. So we're done. I'll just cut this through piece by piece. That's the first piece. The center piece is what I'm tracing out now, and I'm going to trace out the last piece. As you can see, that's the other side of this pattern. So we're done with this pattern. This is what it looks like. We're going to be placing on the fabric to recreate. But before we place on the fabric, because I'm working with a white fabric, right, so if I decide to use this gum stay to line the fabric, it will show the markings. So I'm cutting a fresh gum stay that I'll be working with for my fabric. So the part that has the markings will no longer be useful for me. Another trick you can try is you can decide to double the gum stay so that the fabric is as hard as possible. So right now I'm just going to cut the skirt area. It's very simple. You plot your waist measurement, plot your hip measurement, your knee measurement, and the full length measurement for this for the skirt area, or for the lower part of the dress, and you're good to go. That's what I just basically did now. I'll do that, plot all the lines and the curves, and then replicate this to cut the back of the skirt. So I'll just cut this through now and pin down with my bobbin pins. Fold again, this will be on fold, so that I can cut the skirt measurements. I'm also trying to mark the zip allowance so that it's as equal as possible. The zip allowance I'm working with is 2.5 inches, and I'm cutting this through now, and there you have it. I'm just going to open the sides for the slit, and so that when I'm placing on the lining for this part, it's easy for me to cut. So I'm going to place this on the lining and cut through. Now it's for me to place the gum stay on the main fabric, and then just cut through. And when cutting, I still left half an inch sewing allowance on the bustier part, and 1 inch sewing allowance on the outer part of this. There's no need for me to cut separate, use the gum stay separately. It's the same measurement, so I just picked one side of the gum stay to cut the left and right piece. This is the center point of the pattern, so I'm just going to be cutting through half an inch sewing allowance across it, so that by the time I join, my measurement is as accurate as possible. So we have this now. Before coming to the sewing machine, let me also mention that I for the main fabric, I ironed out my stay on it. That's the stay you can see at the back of the fabric. But for the lining, I ironed the gum stay on the lining. The lining I use is what we call aba lining in Nigeria, and I made use of 4 pieces of lining for each part of the pattern. So for the left, for the center, and for the right part of the lining, it was four pieces each. The gum stay was hidden in between the lining, so you have the first 2 pieces, the gum stay on it, and the last 2 pieces of the lining for each part of the pattern for the lining. But for the main fabric, I just ironed the stay on it. I would also advise something I noticed while sewing as well. If your fabric is not so thick, you can I would advise that you iron your stay on the lining first before placing on the main fabric that you'll be working with. I didn't do that with this, so I mean, after ironing, it wasn't as smooth as I've wanted it to be, but it's a key learning that you can pick from that. So what I'm doing basically now is to just join the pattern, join everything. I'm done with the main fabric now, so I'm joining the lining now. You can see me placing the pattern on the lining. Like I mentioned, it's 4 inches. I'm opening this up so you can see this is what it looks like, just with the stay. But now I'm joining the lining together. The gum stay is in between this already. I'll just continue with that pattern till we have achieved the joining the front piece, the main fabric for the front piece, and the lining for the front piece. This process is just very easy. Just follow me, watch what I'm doing, and also replicate the same. You would achieve the same result. So what I'm just doing now is to sew the lining, following the pattern that I've created, and that's what you have. So we're done with the joining now. I will just place the lining now on the main fabric and close up the upper part of this pattern. So we're done joining the upper part of this pattern. I just want to flip over to see what I have, so I'm sure that this sets properly. After doing this, I'm also going to join the sides, close up the sides, so that I can now eventually join the back and the front. But let's move to the back pattern. So this is what the back pattern looks like. I've placed my lining on it. I'm just going to now sew from the armhole side towards the upper part of the back side. I'm going to also close up that point, which is where the zip allowance will be sitting. I'm going to replicate the same for the other side of this as well. Close up the upper part and the armhole sides, as well as the sides as well. I'm going to close up everything from where the zip sits to where the side is. I'll just be doing that just because I don't want to keep raising the lever up and all. I'm just doing this in a continuous motion till I get what I want. So after doing this or achieving this process, I would definitely go to the ironing board to open this up and iron this out. First of all, trim out all the excess edges before I do that. So we are done with the back side now. The next thing I'll be doing is to join the skirt area or the lower part of the dress with the lining. So I'm joining, this is the back side of the skirt area or the lower part of the dress. I'm also going to be doing the same thing for the front parts, just join the lining on the fabric, flip over, iron it out, and then do the final joining. So this process is over. The next thing I'll be doing now is to close up the sides for the front part of this dress. So I'm closing up the sides now. I'll flip over, go to the ironing board to open up, and join the front with the back. But before joining the front with the back, I've created a dart for the back side on the ironing board. So I'm just going to take half an inch from that dart that I've created, back dart. It's very simple dart, and I'll just sew that through. I'll be doing this for both sides of the back. So I'm done with this now. What I'll be doing now is to join the back like together, like as you can see in the video. I'm joining the front with the back for the left side and for the right side. I took my measuring tape to also measure to get the exact inches that I'll be taking away from this before joining. So I'm doing that now. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side when I'm done with this side. So for this side is also the same process. Take out the excess inches that won't be needed for the bust area and for the waist area, and just sew through all the way. And we're done with this part. The next thing will be to join the upper body with the lower body of the dress. But before I do that, let me join the back side with the front side for the skirt area or the lower part of this dress, and I'll just quickly do that so that we can join the upper body with the lower body. So I'm done joining the sides of the skirt or the lower body. I'm just going to join the tip now of the skirt. I'm done with that. The next thing I'm going to do is to just close up the tip of the upper body so that when I'm placing on the lower body of the dress, it's easy for me to know what I'm doing in terms of the lines to follow when placing on the skirt. It's just a technique that I use to determine what to do. So the light has gone off at this point. I was so angry. I just went on to just check that what I've sewn for the lower part of the dress is accurate in terms of the waist measurement and the hip measurement. So I went on to put on generator. I'm back on the sewing machine now, and I'm just going to complete this process that I had already started, which is to draw a straight line on the upper body of the dress so that when I place on the lower body of the dress, I can just follow through with the line to know that I am not leaving anything behind or leaving any part of the fabric behind. So I'm done with this. I'll place on the lower body of the skirt, but first remember that there's this like string that holds the structure going from the body downwards. So that's what I just did now. Turned it in. I worked with half an inch plus a quarter. I secured this on the main fabric by looking for the center point. So I placed this way. Just follow me, you understand what I'm doing. I placed this way so that it sits firmly at the center of this dress and at the center of the skirt area, so that when I flip it over, I would be able to use it to cover up the joining on the skirt area. But just go with me, you would understand what I'm doing. So the next thing I did was to join the upper body with the lower body of the skirt. I'll quickly do that so that we can proceed with the next step for this dress. So we're done sewing now. Trying to finish this up. I'm going to flip over so you can see what that strand that we had put in looks like. So this is what it looks like. I'll flip back and we'll just trim off the excess on the waist side before covering up. So the way I do my finishing for the waist, I place a piece of fabric, just as you can see on this rather in this video. The piece of fabric that I use is about 2 inches 2.5 inches wide, and also as long as the measurement for the waist measurement, with about 2 inches extra. So for instance, my waist measurement is 25 inches. Adding 2 inches to that, I'll be using like 27 inches for this strip. So after sewing on that line, I will turn over now, as you can see me doing in this video. I flip over twice so that it conceals the excess. So I'm using this to close the waist area so that I don't have to weave. Some persons might decide to weave the waist, but this is how I do my waist finishing, or how I close my waist area. So I used the piece of lining for this to just close this, so that even when it's as flat as possible inwards, and it's not discomforting to the person who will be wearing this. Because of the fact that some types of fabric are kind of harsh to the skin, I also subscribe to this method, so that it just covers up. Even after weaving, it doesn't sort it out, it just covers it up. So the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to mark the lines that I'll be sewing the fringe on. I'm doing this because I want to ensure that the fringe is sewn on a straight line, and not wobbling or curved like on the fabric. So that's why I placed this on the mannequin. The length of the fringe that I worked with is 15 inches. So the first thing I did was to mark 15 inches from the tip of the skirt upwards, right? So I have my 15 inches. I also made sure that I did this across, because the fringe is going across. The fringe is not in front. Then the next thing I did was to mark 7 inches. So you saw me mark something first. That was 7 inches, or 7 inches. Then I went on by 7 inches, so that when I sew the fringe on that second line, it stops midway where the first fringe has been sewn, and that's the 7 inches. I went further again to mark another 7 inches. So I'll just be taking 7 inches till I get to the upper part. For me, I would only be sewing the strip of fringe on 4 lines across this dress. So this is the 3rd line that you can see now, and the 4th line is what I'm doing now, and that's it. So 7 inches as well across till I get to the back, so that when the zipper meets and when the joining meets at the back, everything is sitting equally. So now let's go to the sewing machine now to sew the fringe on these lines. Another thing I did was, after sewing the fringe on the 4 lines across the fabric, I doubled the fringe, because when I sewed the first line, I noticed that it wasn't as full as I wanted it, or as chunky as I wanted it. You can make yours 3 strips instead, but for me, I made use of 2 strips, which at the end of the day will bring me to using a pack of fringe. A pack of fringe has 7 yards of fringe plus 1 yard. So I had bought 2 packs just in case I work with the first pack and I'm not satisfied with the output. So at the end of the day, I made use of 1 pack of long 15 inches fringe plus 1 yard. I didn't even finish the yard. The yard is 36 inches, but I used about 30 inches or even less to finish up this process. So that's the quantity of fringe that I used for this design. Just like I mentioned, what I'm doing now is to double out the fringe. I'm opening it up so that I don't mistakenly sew on the fringe. I'm just going to double this across all 4 lines. After this process, I'm going to try to create the flap that you had seen at the beginning of this video, that went from the midpoint of the lower body of the dress towards the back. So now it's time for me to work on the flap. So I've folded the flap into two, and I'll be working with 3.5 inches wide for this flap. The length that I worked with is 25 inches. This will reduce by the time I place on the fabric. So I'm just going to sew the flap. I made use of 6 flaps. This flap has already been covered up with the gum stay, as you can see in this video. So the gum stay is placed on the fabric. I can also advise that you first of all place on a lining before placing on the main fabric. So all the squeeze that you see or that you see now, even after ironing, will not show on the main fabric. So it's advisable for you to iron this out on a lining first before placing on the main fabric. So we're done sewing now. I trimmed the edges, turned it over, ironed out to flatten, and I started working this on the mannequin. The flaps that I'll be working with, remember I said 6 flaps, so 3 on one side, or 3 on the left side, and 3 flaps on the other side, but they will just be resting on each other from the front to the back. So depending on the technique that you deem fit for yourself, depending on how you want it to slip on the fabric. I want it to slip very well on the fabric, or rest or sit properly on the fabric. I don't have this bulge on the sides, so I'm just trying as much as possible to pin this down in a way that it suits what I'd envisioned when I sketched this. So I'm just going to first of all pin this down all through for the left and the right side, and then go to the sewing machine to sew the part that can be sewn, because trust me, this is very, very thick. I'm going to be finishing up the rest with needle and thread with my hand stitch, but just so that this secures properly with the machine, the sewing machine I'll be working with. That's why I'm going to take this first to the sewing machine before I'm finishing up with hand stitch. So I'll quickly just finish this up so you can see the final output of what this looks like eventually. So this is it. I'm just going to quickly hand stitch the panels on each other before transferring to the sewing machine to firm this up. So back on the sewing machine now, I will just be closing this up very quickly to the point where this can pass through the machine, because also you have to be careful as not to break your needles or get your machine in a bad shape, because this will be very, very thick when sewing through. Also, another trick that I used was to pull the lever up so that it doesn't, the teeth of the machine doesn't rest firmly on the flap that you can see right now. So we're done, about to be done, or almost done with this, or just follow through the process to see the finished look. So the machine work is done. I'm trying to at this point trim the slim flap that will be covering the joining together, so that this looks very, very okay. So this is it. I've adjusted the flap to sit or slip properly towards the back. That's it. You can see layer by layer, and this is what the front looks like. So that's already covering the joining, and this is the flap on the other side as well. When placing the flap, I ensure that from the waist downwards the measurement is equal, so that when this comes together, it's not longer than the other. It's very, very equal on both sides, on the left and on the right side of this pattern. So you can see me opening this up to show you what this looks like, so that this is very, very smooth as possible. So we're done with that part. Now let's try as much as possible to do the ruched net area, the gathered net area, as we pleat the net all through from that sharp part of the curve towards the lower part of the armhole. So I'm quickly going to I'm going to slow the process down first, so you can see how I place the net on the part of that curve part. You can see me arranging the net in a very gathered way. So I'm using my bobbin pins now to secure that on that part. So I'm just going to follow through, pleat together, and then use the bobbin pin to also secure this firmly. I'm going to do this on the left side and on the right side till I'm done with this process. So I'm using my bobbin pins to gather together and show that the net is sleeping properly on the fabric. So I'm done pleating now. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to use my big scissors to trim out the excess, but ensure that you have more than enough to work with, so that when this goes to the back, you have enough net to work with to pleat on the back as well. I measured this and got 18 inches, so I'm going to be making use of that same measurement for the other side. So the same procedure rather, I'm pleating across this, and I will just the same thing I did on the left side I'll be doing on the right side. When I'm done, I'm just going to trim the edges again, or the excess again, and then turn this over so that we can replicate the same for the back. If you have a dress form, this will be so easy for you, because you get to pin the bobbin pin on the dress form rather than work with a mannequin that everything just slides all through. If I had a dress form, it would have been easy for me to ensure that this is firm enough on the fabric rather on the mannequin or on the dress form. But we still were able to achieve, or rather I was still able to achieve what I wanted to achieve. So I'm placing the arms for the mannequin so that I can get an accurate measurement when pleating this. So I'm pushing this upwards so it just sits properly on the mannequin, and ensuring that it's also on the center part of this. So this is it now. I'm going to pleat the same thing that I did in front of the back, but I'm going to just, while pleating, just to ensure that this is as neat as possible. You don't want any excess stretch or anything, so I'm just going to be ensuring that this pleat is as fine and as neat as possible, following through the measurement for the pleats. So let's go to the back to pleat now. We're done pleating on that side, so I'll just show you how I pleated the back. Just follow through. That's it, ensuring that everything is as smooth as possible before using bobbin pins to secure this on the back side, and voila, there you have it. So I'll do the other side as well. Make sure that the gathers, or the ruched part of the off shoulder or sleeves is as smooth as possible, and then I'll just use my bobbin pin to also secure this. Also bearing in mind that the measurements have to be accurate, so the measurement away from the zip allowance is about 2.5 inches, so that's what I picked up my measuring tape to check, to be sure that this starts at the same place where this started on the other side of this dress. And there you have it. So afterwards, I'm going to be taking this to the sewing machine to sew this across and then bring it back to the mannequin. So we're back on the machine now. I'm just going to sew this through following the pins that we had pinned down on the fabric. It's very easy, just follow through what you had pinned down, but carefully, because it's also kind of thick, but not as thick as the structures on the lower part of the skirt. Just go gently following the pleats that you had pleated on the mannequin, and you're good to go. So we're done with the pleat for the upper part. We'll just sew through the structure for the lower part of the dress. So that's what we're doing now. It's already been placed on each other, as you can remember, on the mannequin. So after doing this, I'm just going to pick up my big scissors to just trim out the excess that is no longer useful for this pattern or for this style. I'll do the same thing for the other side, sew through and then trim out the edges or trim out the excess. Alright, so this is what we have now. Before I started the camera, I trimmed the first part, so I'll just trim out the second part so you can see how to trim carefully. So I'm just going to be using my scissors to trim out the excess that you can see on this part of the dress. I'm going to flip this over to the back so that you can also see what this would also look like when you trim out the back. So this is the front part, sitting very pretty. I'm going to flip now to the back and trim out so you can see what the final outlook looks like. So quickly, let's just trim. So we're done with that side. Let's move to the other side and also trim. Trim out, and we're done. So I'm going to be covering up this with flowers, very pretty flowers, white flowers. First of all, I pin down with my bobbin pin so that I can follow through when stitching on the fabric. I'm going to just go close up so you can see what these flowers look like. They're so fine. I'm going to also show you what the back looks like. So this is what the back looks like, with the flowers sitting at the back. This is it, 4 flowers each on both sides. So I'm going to be using my needle and thread to sew this on this. Now you can decide to use glue if you want, but I decided to use needle and thread to sew this down. So this is it. This is the final outlook of this dress. From sketch to reality, I had to first of all sketch this because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at first, but I'm so pleased with the outlook. So if you haven't subscribed, now is the time for you to click on that subscribe button. It will make me happy. Do not forget to also give this video a thumbs up, share to your various platforms so people can learn a thing or two about sewing. Like I always say, keep creating magic. From me to you, it's bye bye. It's Saint Nightingale.